Hey, clean that lens off a little bit. How's everybody doing? It is Friday afternoon, my last video of the week for you folks. I am Captain Awesome, otherwise known as Jeff Avery. I am the owner and chief operator of Cape Cod Learning Tours, which is a hands-on, typically marine science tour company. We work with local schools and hotels and take people out on tours to teach them how amazing the area is, why Cape Cod is unique. And while I'm going to take the weekend off, come Monday, we'll be back with new presentations. Hopefully, I will have a little bit of a better setup for the presentations I do from home. So we are here today at the Lowell Reservation in Mashpee. Quick turnaround of the map here. So we are right here on South Sandwich Road. We're going to walk up the trail and walk around, and we're just going to chat and have comments and all that stuff. There are a few other people here. I will do my best to avoid them. And we're going to start just by talking about one of my pet peeves. So if you recognize that, you know that inside that blue bag is dog poo. So while I am thankful that whoever walked their dog picked up their poo and put it in a bag, the bag goes in the trash. Put the bag in the trash. Now that poo is going to take even longer to decompose, and the bag probably never will. If you're going to be a dog owner, please be a responsible dog owner. I'm happy to see you out walking your dog. I'm happy to see that happen, but you've got to pick up after your dog. So we're literally just going to walk down the trail and talk about stuff. So I don't know if you watched the presentation yesterday, but on the presentation yesterday, I talked about how the Cape had been deforested through the 17 and 1800s. And as a result, we don't have any old growth forest here. And most of the plants that we have are introduced, an invasive species. We have maybe 65% or so of all the plants you see are introduced. So we're going to talk about some of them. It's been a long time since I've been in the woods and talked about the woods, but we're going to do our best. So we've got two kind of main types of trees that we see here. One, we've got evergreens or different types of pine. This kind of pine needle indicates that that is a white pine. And then this tree, the deciduous tree with this bark, is an oak tree. Those are the two main kind of trees that we have on the Cape. We've got lots of scrub pine and lots of scrub oak because those are the trees that grow quickest after we chop everything down. So this path is pretty well maintained. Got a lot of pine trees here. Let's see if we can find anything kind of interesting. Hold on. Let's see. Okay, so here's something kind of neat you guys may have seen pretty commonly on the forest floor. This little plant here is a winterberry or wintergreen. Sometimes it has a little red berry, and apparently, as best I can tell, you can make tea out of that. That's a pretty cool little plant, pretty common. Got a lot of young trees growing up through here. Notice that they are marking the trails very well. That means that I'm on the red trail, and we're going to try to kind of loop around. Let's see. Got a lot of lichens growing here all over the tree here. So this lichen on the bottom is called a old man's beard lichen. And then all on the tree are these slow growing lichens as well. I'm not sure what this one is called. It's pretty common. Lichens are a combination of algae and fungi growing together. I'm sorry. is it algae and fungi or moss and fungi? It's algae and fungi. Algae typically need a lot of water, so they're locked up in the fungi there. It is awful pretty today. It's a little dreary, not near as bad as it was yesterday, which is good. Tell you a quick story while I'm walking up the hill here. So I've been doing this a long time. I was a terrible student in high school, but there was one class that I really liked, and that was Ecology 2, and that was taught by a gentleman named Pete Auger. He's a doctor now, as in he got a doctorate, and I helped do studies with crows and diamondback terrapins and all that cool stuff, and he really opened my eyes to how amazing everything was here and what you can see if you just take your time and really do good observation. So when I'm out here, I try to keep my eyes open. I listen for birds. Again, the forest is not my typical kind of spot, but there are some really cool things to find. I am in particular looking for a particular kind of lichen that's called a British soldier lichen. That's because it has this red top, like a red coat. It's a really cool little thing. If I find it, I'll show you. Let me get you back on the path. So, this reservation happens to be, it'll end up going out a little bit by Mashpee-Wakeby Lake. Now, Mashpee and Wakeby Lake are kind of interesting because we tend not to have proper lakes on Cape Cod because of the way that we were formed. If you know the definition of a lake, is that the body of water has to be deep enough at some point. Oh, look! A flock of wild animals over there. Three little, I don't know if you can call them dogs. I really feel like if you have to bend over to pet them, they're not a dog anymore. But the deal with a lake is that at some point, it has to have a spot where light can't reach the bottom of it. It doesn't have to do with the diameter or how big around it is. It has to do with how deep it is. So a lake has some spot where light can't reach the bottom. And Mashpee-Wakeby Lake actually has a spot like that. And it's a really cool lake with a good herring run as well. We are coming soon to the point where we will have herring running in the streams. So now we're heading up this way, going up the red trail still, as you can see the mark on the tree. Lots of downed trees. Not really hearing much in the way of birds. I'm kind of keeping a listen out. I can still hear the traffic on the road. That's another thing that's oh, do bears live there? So Cape Cod has no bears. Interesting story. I'm going to tell you two interesting stories. This is from Miss Lindsay asking if there's bears here. When settlers first came to Cape Cod, it was old growth forest. And all the animals that you would find in the traditional wildlife of New England did, in fact, live here. We had moose and wolves and panthers or mountain lions and bears. But we very quickly, tore the place apart and inhabited it, and all those animals kind of went away. A few years ago, I don't remember exactly how many years, a bear actually got back on the Cape and started heading in the Provincetown direction. It was amazing. It was in the news every day. They finally darted it and sent it back out to Western Mass. There are different trails here. They're all pretty similar. And again, heading down towards the lake. I'm going to let these folks pass me. They're probably wondering who I'm talking to. Facebook Live. It's I have a tour company, so I'm doing a little Facebook Live thing for folks while school's out.
I was just catching the history lesson.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah. So, yeah, there's a couple of different trails. They all look pretty similar. This is pretty accessible. Next week, I think I'm going to go out towards Great Island in Wellfleet, because there's a long walk there, and I almost always find bones, and it's a little remote, and this time of year is when you might find some animals that have washed up. As sad as it is an unfortunate fact of life. Excuse me. So we're also looking at some dead trees. So when you see like that right there, hold on. That little hole. So we can find lots of dead trees that have holes in them. We have a number of cavity nesting birds. And so these are birds that live in the holes, and they could be owls or woodpeckers or chickadees and different animals, different birds like that. I always try to keep an eye out for them. Sometimes you can see their face kind of poking out of the hole, and they are kind of getting ready to nest at this point. Oh, here's something kind of interesting. So you see all these holes that are knocked into the bark, right? So this is an old one. I'm going to pull that apart. Those are put there by woodpeckers or flickers to get the insects that are underneath. You can see that there were probably insects because there's lots of little grooves and stuff that beetles would have put into there, and they are looking to eat those. Here we go. I'm going to open this up and see what we find. Right? Not a lot. It's been cold. We do have an interesting beginning of that right there. Those little orange dots are probably the beginning of a slime mold, and those will get bigger. Move around. Smaller trees with the whitish leaves, like that right in front of me. I think, though I'm not 100% sure, that these are maybe an aspen, but I'm not 100% sure. It looks like a birch leaf to me, but it could be an aspen. Again, I'm not super great at the trees. I am definitely going to go home and look it up, because there are lots of them here. This is the tree that the reservation is named after. This is a holly tree. So this is a deciduous tree, but it also stays green all year round. This is the famous Christmas kind of tree. The males don't have anything on them. The females will end up getting little red berries all over them. Some trees have black formations on their trunks. Always wondered what they are. So, depends. Are you talking about what could be called a burl? There are some evergreens that kind of mound up around the side, and then they grow from those burls. Other kind of spots could be... Oh, this is really cool. Hold on, guys. So, I don't know what that is, but that is clearly some sort of fungus related to a mushroom. Look at how cool that is. Those little fingers kind of growing there. That's also because it's been wet the last couple of days. That's really awesome. I'll have to look those up and see what those are. Normally, I would carry... See, there's some down in that crack as well. Normally, I would carry with me some guidebooks, but it's hard for me. Yes, Lindsay, some trees are male and some are female depending on the species. So holly trees are one of those types of trees. If it has red berries all over it, it's the female. That's the reproductive part. And the males don't have any berries on them at all. It's a really cool thing to think about, how they reproduce. Ooh, it got kind of bright as I moved out into this spot, looking for that lichen that I was talking about before. Lots of stuff always going on. All these logs are, rotting and decomposing, and it's been cold. So as it's cold, things have slowed down. But quickly, it's going to warm up here real soon, and you're going to see a blizzard of mushrooms and fungi and rot and mold and all that really cool stuff that makes the world kind of move. Another interesting thing about around here is we do have deer. Deer are kind of common. And one thing that a lot of people don't know is that deer grow new antlers every year. And the old antlers fall off. They have spots they call scrapes, where they put their head into a branch, scrape it around, and help the antlers fall off. Somebody asked me one time, how come there aren't antlers just all over the place? And the reason for that is because lots of other animals eat the antlers. In particular, rodents, mice, chipmunks, things like that, because it is a big source of calcium. We'll be down at the lake here fairly soon. I'm not really keeping track of time. I'm just chatting along here, so bear with me. Lots of blowdowns here. It was a little windy a few weeks ago, so I think a lot of that is a result of that. Oh, the deer. Yes, the deer definitely bed down during the day. We'll decline that for now. They're out. Deer are what we consider to be what's called crepuscular animals. That means that they're active, mostly active, at dawn and dusk, at sunrise and sunset. So we don't see them during the day, because during the day is when it's easy to be seen and thus eaten. So they kind of hunker down. Here's a really cool, some stuff. Look at this. It's all rubbery. I'm going to imagine that is also some sort of fungus. Really, again, I'll have to look that up when I get home. It's been wet. See how here it's still pretty slimy. That is pretty awesome. I love when I find stuff like that. And that's the little thing that a lot of people don't even notice. They'll just walk right by that. And they'll be like, oh, there's no birds, there's no this and that. And here's a little bracket mushroom just starting to grow. It's not even as big as the tip of my finger, but those will get big. That'll probably get much bigger. See, there's more growing here. And again, that happens after it rains. Some more bracket mushrooms. These are awfully pretty. Look at the color on those. That is gorgeous. Look at those. All creating the energy in the soil of the forest floor. Interesting things about Cape Cod. We've only got 9 species of snakes. None of them are venomous. There are a couple that will bite you and draw blood, but none of them will do you any long-lasting harm. So we've got turtles, we've got snakes, but we don't have any lizards. There are no lizards on Cape Cod. We also have some really cool amphibians. We have these big salamanders called spotted salamanders, and it's almost time for them to come up and lay their eggs. We'll start having some vernal pools, which are springtime areas that are full of water, that will only be full of water for a couple of weeks. And so the spotted salamanders will come and lay their eggs, and within a few days, those eggs will hatch. There'll be a tadpole. They'll transform into a salamander and head right back into the leaf litter. These are big salamanders. They get to be 5 or 6 inches long, black with big yellow spots. They're really cool. It's a little early for them yet, but sometimes if you turn over a log, you might find something under there. Not this particular time. I think we're almost down at the lake. How windy is it on Cape Cod? Well, that depends. So Cape Cod sticks out into the ocean. So there are times when it's very, very windy. Today it's relatively calm, but there is almost always some sort of breeze. There's been a big argument going on for years now about building a wind farm down in Nantucket Sound. Because the wind is always blowing, it's felt that it would be a good place to generate energy. But because Cape Cod is also a huge tourist destination, nobody wants to ruin that possibility. Here's a really cool plant. This is called club moss. That's actually a type of moss. It's pretty large, and it grows in different parts of the forest floor. It's a really cool little thing. I'm going to turn over this log. This one looks like it's been here for a while. Let's see what we might find. Do you guys see anything? I see a little centipede. I don't really see anything. Again, it's pretty chilly. It's not until stuff... Yes, the wind can do damage, knock nests out of trees. Sometimes it knocks whole trees down. We had some winds a few weeks ago that for like 2 days were sustained at almost 50 miles an hour. That was pretty damaging to a lot of stuff. One of the lucky things we have right now is that because we are highly seasonal, we have a lot of animals that are not even nesting yet. They tend to nest soon. One of the animals that is nesting is a crow, and I've been keeping an eye out for a crow's nest because they're really unique. Another interesting plant. Doesn't look like anything. No leaves on it. But do you see how those branches are green? The bare branches are green all year long. That means that's a blueberry bush. The blueberry bush branches are green all year round. Both the ones that are low, which we don't have any right now, and the high blueberries. It's pretty quiet now. So it looks like there's something that was recently digging in there. I don't know that that would be a nest space or if it was something that was looking for insects to eat, but definitely recent activity in that trunk. It looks like a mini Christmas tree. Yeah, that little moss, yeah. It's really cool. We also have these little white fungi that come out of the forest floor later on. They look like little pipes, and their common name is the Indian pipe. Let's see, which way do I want to go? I want to go this way. See, the trail splits, but I can see the red mark on the tree over there, so that's the direction I want to go in. Ooh. All right, I'm going to be quiet just for a minute, and I'm going to see if you guys can hear this noise. Those are spring peepers. Those are one of the frogs that are going to lay eggs in the vernal pools. Hey, good morning. How are you? Afternoon, rather. How are you? Hello, pretty. And spring peepers are a tree frog. They're a type of tree frog. And so that's kind of a cool animal that's out calling right now. And that is a male or males who are calling females, saying, hey, listen to this call. Isn't this amazing? Wouldn't you like to reproduce with me? I'm a really good reproducer. That's what that is all about. Pretty loud, too. Like, those frogs are maybe an inch long, and I can hear them from this far away. Like, that's a pretty loud animal. Imagine if it was 6 feet tall like we were. Hello, folks.
Hey.
How are you? Yeah, the Indian pipes are pretty cool little things for sure. Fungi are really amazing in general. Okay, we're coming down to the pond now, or the lake rather. You'll see that the plant life kind of changed as we got closer. So these are some plants that like to live nearer the water. I would, even though there's no buds yet, I would bet you that lots of these are pussy willows. Pussy willows really like to Blair Witch cinematography. So I worked in movie theaters for 20 years, and I used to own one. And I never thought that a horror movie could scare me. But I gotta tell you, The Blair Witch Project scared me. One of the few movies that ever scared me. So we got some good signs of spring. See the buds starting to come out on the branches there. Let me see if I get it to go into focus. Look at that. How awesome is that? I really dislike winter. I know some people love it. I'm not a skier. I'm certainly not a guy who likes to deal with snow. So I'm much happier when we're starting to get into the summertime. So here we are on the edge of the lake. It's pretty calm, pretty peaceful. Right over there is another area called the Ryder Conservation Land. There's a little island. Can I zoom in here? I can. So there you can kind of see it is a bufflehead, which is a really neat local duck that we have. The water's nice and clear right now. Some leaf litter. Not a lot of activity happening. Again, it was dreary. Rained all day yesterday, and it's still a little bit cold. So this area over here where you see this water, this protected water is where a lot of animals are going to come and lay their eggs, i.e. frogs, toads, salamanders. So there's lots of amphibians that they live on land, but they have to go into the water in order to lay their eggs. There are some salamanders that can lay their eggs on land as long as they're kept really, really moist. Again, we're just going to talk about a little pet peeve. If you're going to come down here and you can't wait till you go home to drink, can you at least, please, pick up your bottles and put them in the trash? This really isn't the place for them. People do fish here. This is a lake that is full of great fish. There's largemouth bass, there's smallmouth bass, there's perch, there's sunfish. There's pickerel. I've heard that there's northern pike in here, but I don't know how true that is. And I have fished this pond myself in my kayak and a canoe. And they do stock it with trout as well. So people definitely fish through here. It's a lake, but it was formed like the other ponds on the Cape by huge chunks of ice that fell off of the glacier that was here about 10,000 years ago. And so it filled with water and it broke through to the water table, so it has remained. So I'm going to take a few minutes and I'm just going to rest my toots for just a second on this lovely bench that they have provided here for me. This is a great spot. This is why so many people kind of come to Cape Cod, because we can come to a beach and we can come to a pond. If you're a fisher person like I am, you can go fishing on a lake and then be in salt water in just a little while. There are lots of issues here, though, because of where we are. We have nitrogen loading issues. We have some development issues. We're definitely going to have problems with sea level rise as time goes on. Miss Victoria, I have absolutely fished in here many times. I am a catch and release guy. I don't really eat much of what I catch unless it's a striped bass or a bluefish. Freshwater fishing is just something to help me relax and be calm. I just love being out here. This is an amazing thing, and I'm glad that I'm able to share it with all you folks today. I think this is really good time, and as long as this coronavirus stuff is going on, we will continue to do this on Monday through Friday. So here's some folks kind of out walking along as well. How are you guys?
Yeah, hi.
See anything interesting?
Yeah, there was a peace sign and a heart.
Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah. Seen those in the road. Yeah. Somebody keeping an eye on us.
That's right.
Thank you. So we got a little parking lot here. Go over to the other side. And then hey Mike, how's it going, bud? We miss you guys. Walk across kind of the gravel part. This is a spot where in the summertime, some people can drive down here. We're gonna go back up this trail over here. This is how the trustees maintain their spot. So if you look up the tops of this is another holly tree. It's a pretty good size one. If you look up in the pine trees, so the crows nest in the pine trees, way up in the top, and they nest early. And crows are a really interesting bird because they work cooperatively as a family group. One female will lay eggs, and they will all help take care of the eggs. So they have a very high success rate. They don't get eaten very much. They tend to live to a ripe old age. So that's pretty amazing. All right, so I think that's a pretty quick walk. Some more water down there. I'm going to head back to the vehicle. I think I have probably exceeded my time for people's kind of attention span. I appreciate you joining me. Next week, we're going to keep going. Like I said, I'm going to try to have some better presentation abilities when I'm at the office to talk about some live animals and things like that. In the meantime, stay safe. Keep your social distancing, do all that sort of stuff, and understand that now's the time to be kind. Be nice to your neighbor. If you know somebody that needs something, help them out. It's going to be a tough time. It's going to get worse before it gets better, I think. And it's really, really important that we all be nice to each other. I'm glad you joined me. I'll see you next week. Keep an eye out for things that are going to be happening with Cape Cod Learning Tours. Have a great day.